Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Elevated Beauty Podcast. Today I have a guest on, which is Athena with Flash Infused and the Estie Bestie. So we've been talking about doing this for a while, but we finally made the plans. And for people that might not, for my audience at least, that might not be familiar with you, why don't you introduce yourself?
So I am Athena. So nice to meet you, I guess, because you guys are going to be
Yeah.
seeing this too, right? I own the Estie Bestie and also Flash Infuse Permanent Jewelry Training Program, and my studio is right here in St. Petersburg, Florida.
So what brought you to Florida? Are you from Florida or did you move there? Because I know you're military, like we're both military
Yeah,
spouses.
yeah. I am a military spouse. So I'm actually originally from Detroit, Michigan, so a little suburb of Detroit. And I moved away from home after my first year of college and ended up in Texas and New Orleans and got married, had a baby. Then we transferred to Key West. I lived in Key West for about 7 years, and now we live in Tampa slash St. Pete, Florida.
Okay, so there's a naval base there.
Yeah, so it's MacDill Air Force Base.
Okay, cool.
hmm Yeah, so my spouse, he is a joint like command person. Like that's all he's ever done is like joint command centers where like actually all of the bases are together. So he's Navy branch, but he knows a little bit about like the operations of every branch, just given his job.
Okay, so this is like not going to be what we're talking about today, but I
Yeah.
am curious. So because I'm also a military spouse, and there
Yeah.
might be some other estheticians who also are.
Yeah.
So I opened my business here when we PCS, which is post change station. We moved
Yep.
here for the military, and we move in like a year. So I'm only able to operate and run my business here for 3 years, and I have to pick it up and move it. Are you going to experience that? Are you ever going to have to pick up the SD Bestie and Flash Infuse and move it to another state?
Yeah, actually, so this was my year to do that, which is why I had such a big transformation and change and like had to step back a little bit because we thought that we were going to be transferring last June, right? Because like our transfer season is either June or December, right? So we thought we were going to get orders in June to have to transfer in December. We got very, very lucky. We begged for like to stay here in Tampa, but I was planning on having to relocate. I had
Yeah.
my leases ending up for both my locations. They both ended. I had a 1 year lease for Flash Infuse because that was a very quick, expenditure with my business for permanent jewelry, and then Bessie, the lease is actually up for my original location for Bestie in May. So I have tenants in there. Like I also rent space there. So like that was okay. We all knew that that was going to be done in May. I was going to have to come back here, get that done. And that's why I actually found this space because I wanted to put everything under one roof because I have a manager
Smart.
for Flash Infuse. I have a beautiful tenant that does her own aesthetics. So like I rent space to her and with her business out of this location now. And my other location for Bestie has tenants there too. So like everything was working out, it was fine, but yes, I was gonna have to transfer and it was gonna be like
Yeah.
me running this business from afar.
Yeah, and that's scary, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's definitely doable. So
Yeah.
any military spouses that think
Yeah.
it's impossible, it's not. It is a little harder than like if you didn't have
Yeah.
to do that, but you make it work. And I'm sure you know people who do that too. Like I know Tanya with Just the Strip. She
hmm
runs the location with employees in Denver, and she lives in Oregon.
Yeah.
And like anybody can do it, but
It's
I'll
definitely a
actually.
different business plan. Like, I mean, I really had to change my mindset in my business plan, and I really had to protect my clients in a sense that like I had to give them enough time to be referred out. So like I actually ended up having to like take a step back from my clients, seeing them for
Mhm.
skincare to make sure that they were able to like find somebody with a recommendation, still having me here to help them find somebody and not like set them up for me being gone. That was the hardest thing.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities. Like
Yeah.
you could, I don't know all the details into like selling your client list and stuff like that, or
Yeah.
just finding someone that you trust in.
Yeah.
Like it's doable, but it's yeah. So I'll be doing that next year, probably like next fall or next summer
Yeah.
even. We'll see.
Yeah.
Um, but today we kind of agreed on the topic. We're going to be talking about SD besties, you guys.
Mhm.
Very fitting, very on brand.
Yeah.
So this is about creating relationships through social media.
Mhm.
So I wanted to ask you, and I have some things, so don't mind me if I'm like reading off something real quick.
Yeah, yeah, go for it. I'm an open book. You know, I will tell you how I feel when I feel it, how I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I mean, if you guys have not listened to her podcast, the Estie Bestie Tea Time, it's literally called Tea Time.
Yeah.
I actually listened to your episode yesterday talking about like online relationships
Yeah.
too. I wanted to ask you, would you say that your online community of fellow estheticians or just other women in business are equally valuable to you as the ones that are in person, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like as business owners and like with social media becoming an essential part of running any business at this point, especially for small businesses, I feel like my online relationships are just as valuable as my in-person relationships. Yeah, they're compartmentalized, different and associated with business most of the time, but some of those bleed over into like the gray area where they become like long-term friends that you see grow throughout the industry and you relate to and you bounce ideas off of, and you really do start to become like in-person friends even though they're far away and they're online.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
mean, in reality, I feel like I talk more to my
Hmm.
social media SD besties than I do
Yeah.
in person because, I mean, the reality is, at least for me, the only estheticians or other industry professionals that I see in person are the ones that are in my building. Okay.
Yeah.
And our relationships are so valuable. They're so important to me. But other people that are in my town, we don't get together. We don't talk. If we do, it's through social media.
Yeah.
But just the reach is so big on social media. The people that you find you have things in common
Yeah.
and you just connect on. So I'm glad to hear you say that because I also felt the same way that they're like
Yeah.
equally and if not more valuable sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how many estheticians do you know that are male spouses? I know very
Literally.
few. You?
Right.
Very few. So yeah, I mean, I feel like, and I don't want to be like negative about this, but I'm just gonna be honest. Like, even being in a space, even having a suite, even having a studio with like other estheticians, like there's very few people that I personally resonated with and was able to trust with my business and my ideas and things like that. That it's almost like being in person, like you said, we don't meet up. We have clientele, and it's so hard for people to actually be community, not competition.
That's what was coming to mind also,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's really sad to say, and I'm hoping that the industry is changing as we're seeing things being brought to the surface and enlightenment happening. We're seeing it left and right. But I'm just, I personally have experienced super positive things and then super scary things when it came to business ideas in the local area.
I don't really associate too much with the other.
Yeah.
I would be open to, and I've tried.
Yeah.
But, communication is a two-way street. And
Yeah.
sometimes people do view you, and it's understandable. Like, if you are in both in the local area, you sometimes could view the other person as your competition. In some aspect, they might be, but it's also having that mindset that you're two different people, so you offer two different experiences.
Yeah.
That's how I like to define the community over competition thing. Is like no one is your competition because they're literally not you.
Yeah.
But not everybody can grasp that mentality.
Yeah, they can't grasp that. And then there's also this like really, really like hard part about being an esthetician and being in the beauty industry and like staying up on trends and wanting to stay true to your authentic self, but also having what everybody else has. And we see that happen so often where it's like, oh, you're bringing in a line, you've done a lot of research, and then other estheticians see like, oh, well, you're getting a lot of traction, you're getting new clients, you're getting these things, maybe I should bring in this line. Maybe
Yeah.
I should have this. So then we all end up having the same things. So it's very
Yeah.
hard, especially with like, I want to say like staying authentic to yourself, but not wanting to like miss out on the trends of skincare.
Yeah. And
It's really hard.
I think that's an unfortunate thing that happens through social media consumption. Like
Yeah.
overconsumption because you can't help when you're constantly consuming, you can't help but see what other people are doing and compare it to what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to stay very like vigilant that I'm like muting people that I feel too inspired by or just limiting my scrolling time because
Yeah.
I don't want to be that person that is like doing things that aren't 100% authentic to me.
Yeah. And it's hard too, like when you put a lot of time and energy and work into yourself to know who you truly are. Like, when you've done the work, right? When you've done the work. When you're being your true self. When you're creating things 100% without looking at anybody else's stuff, and then you see your stuff slowly become a trend and slowly become replicated. It's like, it's inspiring to you to keep going and being authentic, but it's also like, then you feel like, I don't know, kind of gypped when you don't get the credit for those things either. And it I think we see it a lot more in like the earlier stages of aesthetics businesses,
I would
rather
agree.
than like being, I don't know, how many years are you in? 4 or 5 at this point?
Of being an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
2.
Okay, so you're 2 years in. I'm at 4 years in, right? Just doing my stuff by myself, all that. And I noticed that in the beginning, like my first year or two, I was trying to be like an innovator and like doing things so differently, but like I wasn't really being my true self. And then I tried like making my aesthetic look a certain way, and that wasn't true to me. So like finally I just kind of like threw my hands up and was like, I'm just going to do whatever the heck I like, because as much as we're trying to like cater to our audience, like we have to be ourselves to do that.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I refer to this book all the time. People that are probably listening are like, shut up, Emily, we've heard you talk about this before. But Louder Than Words by Todd Henry, he goes through the different phases that you have to go through to find your true, authentic voice. And one of those is, I can't remember the actual term that he used, but it is essentially replicating other people's work. Because you find inspiration through it, and so you replicate it. And over time of replicating it, you find what sticks true to you, and then you make it your own. And so it is a journey.
Yeah.
It's on the path to discovering yourself. Like, it's inevitable to kind of copy what someone else does. So I also wanted to ask, how have your relationships with your online community benefited you personally or professionally?
We'll go professional first. I'll talk about professional relationships first. I have had some amazing opportunities through social media to build with, really prominent companies. I would say like Glymed. I have been on the PR list for dermatology, for Enfisa, for a couple of these, really, really well loved product creators and skincare providers for professionals and for, individuals at home, that those doors wouldn't have been open if I wasn't on social media. And for personal relationships, whenever whenever I feel something like happening in the industry, I know there's a select few people that I can go to and we can just have honest conversations, whether or not we agree about certain things or not. We can have honest conversations about certain situations or scenarios that are happening. And like it's almost like you build this like little family with your personal relationships on Instagram or Facebook. Like I'm an Instagram girly like through and through. I am trying TikTok. I am struggling with TikTok. It is
Same. I've
weird.
given up.
I mean, I keep trying, but I don't know if that one's gonna stick. But yeah, so like, I don't know. I just feel like I feel comfort in my Instagram family and the people that have been with me from like day one or day two. Like, I continue to build relationships personally on Instagram, but professional wise, I mean, I just feel like it's going to be so much bigger and more important to build those one-on-one conversations with these brands through social media. I mean, they really want to see who you are. They want to get to know you at this point. They don't just go out and pick influencers these days because they're got 50,000 followers. They would probably pick somebody closer to where they align and they know that person better rather than caring about their follower count at this point. And
Yeah,
that's
and
important.
from a brand standpoint, it is easy. It's like this is our portfolio, and they can see who they want to work with.
Hmm.
And I've had multiple brands reach out to me through Instagram
Yeah.
and made relationships, cracked a door open through there. And then also to the point that you said about other professionals is like, I've also created group chats with other women that I look up to in the industry. And so I
Yeah.
literally have like a group chat with mentors that I can go to and be like, hey, this is a situation, like, and get some feedback on it.
Yeah.
So I definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I think it's valuable. I think it's invaluable. Like you can't find these relationships. Like you said, like we both have attempted to have relationships with people in our general area that like they just don't pan out because they're just it gets overrun by the competition mentality and you can't control that and you can't help that happens, and it is what it is. So it's like we have access to all these other like-minded individuals. Why would we not take advantage of building those relationships and nurturing those relationships, because they emotionally and mentally, as well as even money wise for our business, will help us both get ahead. It's mutual.
Another question, which like caveats off of this, is what do you suggest for someone who is looking for that strong online community? Like a lot of estheticians watching this might not have these group chats of women that they look up to, and like, so what would you say? How could they achieve that?
I'm trying to think back of like how I got started and like how I message people or how I relate to people. And like, to be 100% honest, like I just like comment or I'll tag them or like I will reach out to them. I love sending voice messages. If you are in my DM box, you've probably gotten a voice message or 100 from me. That's how I communicate. I rather you hear my tone than assume my tone, because I am very technically speaking. Like I do
Very direct, yeah.
yeah, I
Me
speak
too.
very direct, where it can be very misinterpreted, to nobody's fault at all. That's just how I speak. So like, I mean, I just encourage people to like say, "Hey, I saw you post this. I really like that. I resonate that. That's cool." Like, send a positive comment. Let people know you resonate with them. Don't
Yeah.
be afraid to be like, "Hey, I want to get to know you. You are interesting to me. How are you? What has your aesthetics career been like for you? Where are you at in your business?" Start the conversation.
And I mean, it takes time to, right? Meaningful connections take
Mhm.
time and a little bit of work. Like, for example, if I notice like who likes my stuff
Yeah.
and who reacts to my stories and who comments. So
Yeah.
if you're someone that's like commenting on my stuff, I know that you appreciate what I'm doing. And so if you send me a message, I'm going to be so much more willing and ready to interact with you because you see some
Yeah.
benefit in what I do, and I know that we have like minds.
Yeah.
So if you do have somebody that you're looking up to, I would say to do that. Make sure that you're interacting with them, and you don't want to just like jump in people's inboxes without any type of establishment beforehand, because
Yeah.
it's just going to go unnoticed.
Or it'll just get sent to like the what is it, like the
The
general
request.
file. Yeah, the request file. Oh my gosh, I always see like I feel bad sometimes when I have a bunch of requests, and a lot of them are like spam. Most of the requests are spam, which is why we don't check it often.
Right.
Um, but like I feel bad if I miss a message. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I missed this. I did not mean to."
Exactly. You guys are watching and you're curious, besides just feeling like you belong to a community and having people to talk to, that's something else that like having a strong online community can do for you. Is when you do go to these events and stuff, you get
Yeah.
to meet your friends and your peers in person, and also you don't know what like that could turn into for you.
Yeah.
Like they'll might you don't know how people's business are going to grow. They can put your name in a basket for something. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yeah.
Relationships are so valuable.
They are. And, I encourage people, like, if you're going to go to an event, like, if you're going to go to, like, a big event like IESC, right? Or you're going to go to Vegas, or you're going to go to a PMU conference, things like that. Like, I highly suggest, like, when they have the opportunity to join those groups, as much as I hate Facebook groups for anything else, if you can find a roommate that you've never met before, like, if you just, like, converse a little bit and you guys, like, have and share a room, like that's a really good way to get to know somebody that you don't know. It's almost like going to summer camp again and getting assigned a room.
Are you going to ICSC Vegas this year?
I'm not, because only
Okay.
because this year I promised that I would not travel. I traveled so much last year for Flash and
You
Fuse.
did.
I did.
Internationally, right?
I did. I went to so many places, and I had to turn down a whole lot of things this year, and I got really good at not getting the FOMO of like being a sponsor, being a vendor, and doing all those things. But 2025, like my calendar is already booking up.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's good to have an off year. Like your baby, your daughter, she's little, and
Yeah.
you're not going to get that back. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're doing that for yourself.
Thanks. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was that was a hard thing I battled with. I battled with that like mentally and like feeling the obligation to the business to be like, no,
Mm-hmm.
you have to campaign. You can't let the momentum slow down. But it's like, no, you can. You
Yeah.
can. And
And you're
it's
like,
going to be
what's most
fine.
important right now? It's not going to disappear.
It really isn't. I mean, I literally took like 16 months off of Bessie, didn't touch the page, didn't do anything with it. People thought I like disappeared, and I came back like just swinging.
Yeah. I will be going to ESCSC. Oh my god, these acronyms freaking kill me.
I know. I see what it ICSCE.
Yeah. But I'm going to be going to Vegas this year. It's going to be my first IECSC event. I went to the Dallas, like, International Congress, I
Yeah.
think it was called.
Yeah.
I went to that in 2015, so it's been a minute since I've been to, like, one of these events. Um,
That's longer than a minute. That was like an hour.
yeah, it's been a couple hours. But I do have some friends that I'm going to meet up with there. Some of the girls from the Creators Retreat that I
Love
went to
that.
last October, and then I convinced the girls that I work with here to come too. So it's going to be a party.
That's gonna be fun. You should arrange like a dinner or something for you guys to all get together.
Yeah, for sure.
The creators retreat, was that with Tanya?
Yeah.
Okay.
She operates it from her home in Oregon,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. I
Um,
saw she just posted about that today too for next for October this year.
Yeah, so this retreat that she's doing is a little bit different. It's not the Creators Retreat. It's in September, but she's gonna have a lot of people, like industry people there, like Emily with Uproot Wax, Emily with the Brow Fox, um, Stripped AZ, Lady Pink, Jane with Teddy Bear Pain Co. I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got a lot of big names there, so they're going to be, I guess, like teaching, and I think it's limited to like 20 people, so it's a little bit different than the one that I went to.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I recommend it for like all estheticians. It was such a great experience.
Yeah. I feel like estheticians should really like get together outside of their own city, like just go be human beings
Yeah,
and
I
do
mean,
what they
and that's
love.
literally what it
Yeah.
was, because it wasn't all just work. Like we went horseback riding, we did wine
Yeah.
tasting, we got massages, and we did like personal work.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. Like with your business, you do have to do the personal work,
Yeah.
and so that was a big mind shifting moment. Like getting to be there and create those connections that I really feel will be lifelong,
Oh,
as
yeah.
long as Elevated Beauty is running, at least.
Yeah, even after, if you change and you pivot, I mean, you can.
Yeah. It's nice to find people that support you and you just like support each other.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think like when people say like, "Oh, Instagram relationships aren't real." Like that's not real. They're not your real friend. Like I strongly disagree.
I do want to point out something to that, like, my mind was, the gears were turning when I was listening to your podcast episode. So, when people say that they don't agree that they are your real friends, I think that's coming from a place of some people do interact online inauthentically.
Agreed.
Like, I had a friend who paid like the amount of a car to do this coaching experience with this woman who is really big and very well known, and she literally told her, reply just to reply, comment to comment, and it rubbed her really the wrong way. And I'm like, hell yeah, that would rub me the wrong way too, because she's
Yeah.
literally telling you to just interact with people for the benefit, not because you're passionate about it, not because it's meaningful to you.
Yeah.
Do it for your individual benefit and for no other reason.
No, you can't do that.
Yeah, and I think some people do, but I kind of feel like I'm really good at spotting whenever people are operating inauthentic.
Yeah. I feel like I have like the red flag radar like no other as well.
Right. It's just like meaningless responses, maybe.
Yeah.
Not well thought out. They're not, and like you can tell.
Yeah, you can tell when someone's genuine and when someone is being disingenuine. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's might be the place. I can't speak for other people, but I feel like that might be the place where they're coming from, where they think people aren't their real friends.
Yeah.
Because maybe you haven't found the authentic people yet.
Yeah, and they're not finding the authentic people because they're not being authentic to themselves, so they're not attracting the people that they would align with, like, at all.
That's so true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you put out things that are not true to you, what do you think is going to come back? Things that are not true to you. If you
Yeah.
stop and you think and you just like, I don't know, I don't want to say like meditate or like center yourself because it can be either or, but if you just like stop and think, how am I as a human being? And if I allow other people to enjoy me as a human being for who I am, isn't that better in having less people that I enjoy, that enjoy me, that enjoy conversations with me, than having a million people that literally couldn't care if I disappeared tomorrow or not?
And I do,
Yeah.
I totally agree with like you are what you attract. I
Mm-hmm.
love the manifestation mindset and
Yeah.
the abundance mindset. I could talk about it for hours.
Yeah,
Is that something that you practice? Do you practice manifesting?
I do. I see your little 777 behind you
Oh
too.
yeah.
I'll raise you my 555 tattoo.
What is the 555 intuition?
It's for change.
Change. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's for change. I do really well with adaptation. I always have. It's always been a really strong, like, just core thing for me. I don't know why.
Well,
It just
it's
is.
it's been required of you. That's
Oh,
why.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe it's a trauma response. I don't know. But absolutely, I wholeheartedly believe that what is meant for you is supposed to come to you. I wholeheartedly believe in, and timing is always right. Like when it's coming for a reason. And
Yeah.
sometimes you act on things and the timing is off and you learn your lesson. I mean, it's all a give and pull and like a push and a pull with like the universe and like the balance. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
off. That's okay. Adjust and rebalance it. Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that I learned in the last year and a half was starting Flash and Fuse is like I didn't realize how afraid I was of being seen and how afraid I was of having the responsibility because you have courses now. So you've seen what you can do and the income you can bring in and you're like, wow, I should have done this a long time ago, I'm sure. But like you
Yeah.
probably stopped yourself because you were afraid.
And I wasn't ready before. Like
Yeah.
I would have totally flopped it.
Yes, exactly. And I did the same thing. Like I have been talking about Bestie Academy for like years, right? I didn't do it. I completely walked away from the Estie Bestie and did a whole academy in a completely different genre. Now I know I can do it, right? I don't know why I was so emotionally attached to Bestie that I couldn't do what I did there here. So I had to work through that. And that's
Yeah.
like the whole like manifestation, the whole like journey of being a business owner. Like sometimes you have to step away. Sometimes it's the biggest thing you can do so that you can refocus and rebalance yourself.
I'm kind of speaking for myself, but I think when you over identify with something,
Mm.
it can be really hard because you're like, you feel so tied into it
Yeah.
and you want to make it perfect.
Yeah.
And for me, sometimes that's where the fear comes from.
Yeah. Because it's a fear of failure and a fear of people seeing you fail. Because then you have to
Yeah.
stand there in that failure and you have to be humbled essentially. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
And when it means so much, like, you can't risk failing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot of pressure. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves as business owners, which is why it's so important to have people that you can connect with, that you relate to, whether you find them online or not. Just have them in your
Seriously.
corner.
And it's so valuable. I think some people don't understand how valuable it is to learn from people who have done the thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
So many people are willing to teach and
Yeah.
give people those tools, and creating those relationships does that for you.
It does. It does. It gives you an open, it's like sitting at the table with no pressure. It's like when you have somebody that has done what you haven't done, it gives you an opportunity to kind of get out of your own mindset and like see literally how they did it, who they are, what type of person it takes, and it allows you to self-reflect and be like, oh, okay, well, maybe I need to work on X, Y, or Z to get to the point where I feel comfortable. But it really is like there's a lot of, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, there's a lot of internal work that has to be done to run a successful business.
I literally dedicated like 3 or 4 pages to the esthetician guide to just like personal work because that is so true.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, so when you went into aesthetics, you were doing makeup, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went into aesthetics having my PMU license already, thinking I'm just going to do brows and lashes.
Do you still do your PMU?
I don't do PMU anymore.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do PMU. I never did lashes. I hated it.
Yeah. I did lashes for like 2 years and I also hated it.
Yeah, I mean, I miss my lashes. I feel like a naked mole rat all the time, but thanks allergy.
Right. I have them on right now, but this was just for the military ball and like this eye swell up for like 3 days.
See?
And I was like, that it happens. It's always like one eyeball, and I'm like, I don't see how people do this for like 7 years.
Yeah.
Off topic, sorry, but eyelash extensions.
Yeah.
I mean, so one other thing that I wanted to touch on is comparison.
Yeah.
That's something that I personally struggled with at the beginning of my social media career. When I was starting Elevated Beauty and I started to find myself, kind of as we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But still, even today, every once in a while with my Cryptic Skin Apparel,
Yeah.
I will find myself, because it's not even a year old and still growing, and things take time to grow, and there is beauty in that. But I do find myself sometimes comparing the success of that to other people's success and then getting down about it.
Okay, yeah.
Do you feel like you've ever dealt with comparison with social media relationships and stuff before?
I mean, yes, absolutely. I think it would be a lie if anybody told you they didn't get on social media and they're like, oh, I'm 100%, comfortable with who I am.
I know, girl. I was about to be like, are you about to say no? I'm like, oh my God, no.
No way. No way. Yeah. I mean, I would compare myself. I feel like now as I'm more comfortable, as I've done the work, as I've had the experiences that I personally have had in my business journey, I feel like nothing can rock me anymore. Like, seriously, like, you can't faze me at this point. And I'm so grateful for those experiences to put me in a place where I feel like that now. But if I hadn't had those experiences before that, I absolutely was always worried about, am I going to be seen? Am I going to be able to start a trend? Am I going to be able to be authentic? Are people going to follow me? Are they going to buy my products? Are they going to want to get services by me? Of course. And I think that's just one of the phases of business through social media.
And I do, I think it's normal. Like, you're established now, so you don't necessarily deal with, it's a process that you kind of have to go through, and when you're trying to grow, you can't help but see other people's growth and then try and feel like, oh, maybe I need to emulate this type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like a little bit too consuming sometimes.
Yeah.
I think that's where the comparison comes from, when you're like over consuming.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I've talked about this on my podcast before. Like, when you are in the space, like, if you're in an early space and you are comparing, do you have, like, any advice for people that are comparing themselves to their social media peers?
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. Recognize it for what it is. Recognize, like, take a step back and realize what you're doing. Remember that you can't feed your ego with comparisons. Like, you shouldn't be feeding your ego. Like, one of my big things this year is, like, do not live in your ego. It's not about you. It's not about that. So, like, take a look. If you find yourself repetitively comparing yourself or being like, oh, I want that, or how did they get that so fast, or whatever, just, like, accept that is their journey and yours is unique for the reasons that it needs to be unique. And things come in timing. They come in due timing. And that's another thing that I feel like a lot of us don't give ourselves grace on, is that we expect to see the trajectory of all the things that we're doing, all of the stuff we're consuming, all of the ways we're doing our captions, our posts, our pictures, our videos, our reels, everything that we're doing, we expect it to just pew take off.
Oh my God, yeah. And we don't know what the people that we're comparing ourselves to, we don't know what the behind the scenes is.
Exactly.
We don't know how much time they're putting into editing their content.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm just not the type of person that I want to put hours into editing content.
Yeah.
It's not within my lifestyle.
Yeah.
So my trajectory of growth is going to look different because of maybe that reason.
Yeah. But then when we start thinking like that, when we start comparing, all we're doing is we're taking the reflection that we need to take and look at ourselves with, and we are giving it to somebody else, and we're not even able to see what we need to work on because we're so distracted looking and showing the mirror to somebody else.
Yeah, you're putting your energy into thinking about this other person when you should just be thinking about yourself.
Yeah, and it's really hard not to. I mean, it's really hard not to compare.
Oh.
It becomes a distraction, and there comes a time in like your career and like even as an adult and a human being in general, like where you have to recognize the distractions and you have to focus. And I tell my son this all the time. My son is 11. I'm like, Wyatt, you have to master your mind to master your movements. You cannot master your movements through life if you cannot control your mindset and you cannot control your mind. If you just act out of emotion at every little thing, whether it be positive, negative, whatever, you are going to be so distracted, you're never going to get anything done. So master your mind, master your movement throughout life.
Yeah, I love that. You're like helping him understand where are these feelings coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, I even have to tell myself that sometimes when I'm like in a tizzy about something or super excited about something and I just want to shout it out and be so excited about it. I'm like, no, master your mind, calm down.
And you know what's so
move?
crazy? The solution 99% of the time is so simple.
Yeah.
Like we're just distracted and we're not like realizing it.
I think something, I don't know if I touched on this on my podcast, so like I want to touch on it because I've been thinking about it a lot. I always want to encourage people to choose education, whether that be getting to know somebody, getting to know a product, getting to know a brand. Everybody's relationship with each individual thing is different. You cannot form your own opinion if you haven't built or attempted to try, build a relationship, talk to, or interacted with people,
Right.
places, or things. You cannot build a relationship and you can't make informed an opinion if you don't actually have experiences to guide that off of.
That's the mob mindset that does that. I hate the mob mindset.
I call them sheep people.
Sheep people, yeah. Same thing.
It is. It's like the sheep mentality. Like if you want to go and my disdain for Facebook groups and like all the drama and the gossip.
Yeah. Oh my God. I removed myself from them for so long because of that reason, and then I reintroduced, and I'm like, I remember why.
Yeah.
I hated you guys.
It
but
never
no, like,
changes.
Like 2%. Okay, 2% of you guys I hate. The rest are really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like if you limit yourself to one thing that is not positive, that is proven to be negative, that you probably have had, and I'm going to say this because I know like 90% of people have probably had a negative interaction or at least seen one on these aesthetic Facebook groups, then maybe, just maybe, you should remove yourself to not be distracted by things and get to know the people, the places, and the things that you are drawn to, not because or deterred from because of the masses and the sheep people mentality.
Yeah, everyone's experience is different. Everyone's situation is different. You don't know what happened but there's two sides of the story.
Always.
Like, absolutely. I love that.
Always. So that's my biggest thing. Like, don't limit yourself and your opportunities to get to know people on social media or brands on social media because you heard a rumor somewhere.
And that's something so unfortunate about some of the people that are rarely, like, notoriable, like, they're really popular on social media, is it takes nothing for them to post in their story and be like, I had a bad experience with this.
Yeah.
And then here come the sheep, here come the mobs.
Yeah.
And it's like, I always look from afar and I'm like,
Yeah. Well, I'm
horrible.
guilty of that. Like I will say things because of the experiences that I've had. Most of the time, if I personally have to say something, I've got receipts. I show my receipts, and I don't care about the backlash because I have been forced to say something. I don't just go out here saying random things about companies or people or anything unless
Yeah.
there's a story on the backside that they have done and forced me to come out
Yeah.
and say something.
You're like, I've been wronged and I've come to find out all these other people have been too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not
That's
even like
understandable.
it's not like vigilante thoughts or anything. It's like, no, this is messed up, and if no one's going to talk about it, I am forced to talk about it because either I have to one defend my own brand or my own personality or my own business, right?
Yeah.
Or it's like I just feel so passionate about integrity and like doing the right thing by people, even when it's hard, because there's going to be moments in business where it is so hard for you to be like, should I refund this person? Should I change this? Should I resend something out for this person? It's going to cost me X, Y, and Z dollars. Like, it happens. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like, you have to determine, like, are you going to do the right thing in the situation by the other person, or are you going to be selfish and do the right thing by yourself to make yourself feel better?
Yeah. And I think what you were just talking about, I would call that informed consumerism. Like
Absolutely.
I think there's a difference between that and then just
Yeah.
I don't know, trying to bash a brand because of
Yeah.
isolated maybe experience or something.
That's not what it is. I'm
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about informed consumerism for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad because like a lot of people are afraid to do that. Like it's not a cool place to be in. It's not a place you want to be in, but like you feel a duty to do it. And so I actually kind of love that about you.
It's like you have to be so secure in yourself with yourself as a business owner to like get the business flowing. Like you have to be so secure in yourself as a person to attract who you're supposed to be with.
Literally.
Yeah. And I feel like people just think it's so easy to start a business these days because it's made to seem so easy, but like I will always tell you like it's not easy. And it is
Yeah,
constant work.
I feel like I went through 3 rebrands on my social media page, like just trying to find what feels right and it doesn't feel like work and I'm not like being somebody that I'm not.
Did you keep all your old stuff? Or did you
Some of
archive it?
Like, well, I deleted a lot of shit. Like, but I kept a lot of reels.
Yeah.
It was just like a lot of my old infographics and stuff. I'm
Yeah.
like, you're gone.
You're done. I kept all of my stuff from like day one. It's all up
Really?
there. Hmm.
And I honestly love to see when people do that. I love it. But I'm just such an aesthetic person. I'm like, this can't exist with everything else.
That's funny. Yeah, that's funny. See, that's where you're authentic to yourself and I'm authentic to myself. I'm like, yeah, guess what? I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago. I don't do the same things I did 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to live on the internet somewhere. It's going to live on I'm going to be transparent about it. It's going to be right here.
Yeah.
You want to look for it? Go for it. Find it.
So I also wanted to ask you, and this kind of like relates because you said you're not the same person that you were 3 or 4 years ago. What do you see for the Estie Bestie brand moving forward? Do you see it evolving or like what?
Yeah, absolutely. I always had big plans for Bestie, and this was one of the reasons why I took a step back because like I just couldn't see the path or the finish line. And by the finish line, I meant like I just couldn't see where I needed it to be to feel complete, you know? And so when I took a step back, and now I can clearly see the things that I need to do to get me to the point that I see where the end point is, the light at the end of the tunnel, it is so much less stress. But it's also where I align more in educating estheticians, in standing up for themselves, in being, and this is like full circle, like the Estie Bestie brand I created it to be the bestie that y'all didn't get in school, whether it be from afar or in person or anything. Like, your best friend is gonna tell you shit you don't want to hear, but it's probably going to be the truth and it's going to be honest, and you're going to take it to heart. You're going to sit with it, and then you're going to make some changes that benefit you. Like, your best friend is never going to tell you just what you want to hear, right?
Right, whether it relates to your clients or your esthetician peers, like,
Right. Right.
like I'm sure I'll tell people, hey, sis, you're washing your face with Dawn dish soap. That's not cool. Like, I'm not going to skate past that. And also, like, with the estheticians, of course, I see you in that light. I see you speaking up and being a voice and wanting to connect the community in education, like the trademark education that you've given.
Yeah.
I think that's really valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of experiences that I've had, whether it be from, being a sponsor, being a speaker, doing these things that, like, a lot of people don't know that they can achieve. One, so, like, I can share how I did those things. I can share what I did, how to do it, what to look for, those types of things. Product creation, I've done that. I have a patent. I have created products from scratch. I've designed my own zodiac gua sha stones that aren't on the market anywhere else. Like, there are so many things that I feel like we limit ourselves on because, one, we don't know how. Two, we don't have many people, and I'm not saying this to be, like, boastful or anything at all. Like, there's nobody in the industry that I personally look up to that I know have done exactly what I've done. And that's where I knew, by taking a step back, that I had to be the person to do what I'm doing. It can't come from anybody else. Like, it has to be me. It has to be me to stand up for informed consumerism. It has to be me to share the legalities behind the business that we need as estheticians that we don't get unless we have the balls to hire a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
And by balls, I mean, like, the guts or the know-how. A lot of us don't even know how. How do they find a lawyer? They don't know. They don't know you need a patent attorney, an IP attorney, a trademark attorney. Those are all different.
Yeah. And people traditionally don't share this stuff. This is stuff that, like, some people, like, feel isn't relevant to their audience, or they don't want to share because it's, like, personal, but it is valuable at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of programs out there that don't show you. They talk about sales funnels, but they won't show you how to do a sales funnel. They'll talk about taxes, but they won't tell you how to get a reseller certification. They'll talk about having an LLC, but they won't tell you that you can, file as an S corp if you need to by certain deadlines. Like, there's so many things in business that we as a community, as estheticians, don't have access to because we are not taught it in school. It's not regulated. And two, we just live on social media where we think, like, oh, you have a cute brand, you're a great business. No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh my gosh. We both know. Everybody knows. Mm-hmm. There's so much misinformation when it comes to how you're classified as an employee, whether you're a 1099 independent contractor or you're a W-2 employee. And this is something that I see over and over and
in the
over
Facebook
again.
Groups.
It's never ending.
Yeah, but it's also really hard too because, like, when it's just like me and you talking, we don't have a CPA. I don't have a CPA license, so, like, technically I can't advise you on legal things. I'm not a lawyer. I can't advise you on tax or classification. I can tell you what I've done. I can give you my experiences, and you have to make an educated, informed decision on that. But it's so hard because there's a lot of things, like, legally we can't be doing or saying or encouraging on. And so that's where I feel like a lot of the misinformation is coming from. Like, just get a flipping CPA on one of these Facebook groups and put it to rest. Like, just do that.
Yeah. With that being said, too, people will answer the question as if it's a fact. And I'm like, no.
If I don't know the answer to a question, even in my DMs, I will tell you, like, I'm not sure. Let me do some research and let me see if there's someone that I know that can better answer your question.
Yeah, but there's so many impressionable young estheticians starting their career, and they take this job that, they're so excited about, and they take it and they have trust in their boss that, they've been in this industry for years, and so of course they've got my back. Of course they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
No, a lot of the times people will want to take advantage of you. And that's exactly what happens.
It is because it comes from that place of fear of competition.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does somebody really want to see you succeed if they're hiring you and they're putting you at a low wage, and they're not giving you opportunities, and they're not, no, they're trying to keep you there working for them because it benefits them. Yeah, and also we can't be swindled and we can't be BS'd on like the ROI. Just because you say ROI now doesn't mean you're an educated human being.
Yeah.
Like, no, show me the real numbers. Like, all these coaches out here, they're like, oh, you can 10x your income. Oh,
Oh
you can do
God,
this. Like,
yeah.
unless you have actual, like, data, like, for me, I do say I made
Yeah.
X amount of dollars because I'm literally behind the screenshot and showing you exactly how I made it, when I made it, and what it is.
And if you're not giving the numbers to me up front, you're waving red flags. Like,
Exactly.
I'm
And they should.
sorry.
Yeah, those flags should go up 100%.
I actually went and toured a space, which I'm not going to get a space here because we're going to be moving next year.
Yeah.
But I toured a space, and I was like, okay, what's the rent here? And he wouldn't fucking tell me. And he was like, I'm going to email it to you. We'll talk about numbers. And I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm not
No.
interested anymore.
There's been a few brands that I have asked hard questions to and asked for the MSDS and those types of things, and they've sent me PR packages, not because I asked for them, but because they did, and I tried out the product, and I want to know, are your FDA claims real? You can look that up, it's public knowledge. Are you on Google? Can people leave you a real review, or do you only have monitored reviews on your website? Second red flag. Are you answering the questions that I need to be able to disclose what I am trying to say to an audience of 20,000 people? If you can't answer questions for me, like, there are brands that I have literally just said, I can't promote your product. I don't know what's in it, and you can't tell me.
Yeah. And some people don't like to be challenged, and that's what they feel is they're being challenged, and they have that ego there. I feel like that's where some resistance might come from. Have you experienced that? That they feel like you're challenging them, and then they get defensive?
100%. I feel like the Estie Bestie brand, me, myself, as the Estie Bestie brand, has gotten a rap for being challenging when at the end of the day, I have been put in situations to where I needed to stand up for myself and my brand and for others. And
Yeah.
if that gives me a rap of being challenging, wouldn't that want you to work with me more, knowing how transparent I am, knowing the
Yeah.
receipts that I can bring to the table? Like,
If you don't feel safe enough to be challenged,
yeah,
then something's wrong. You
you're
need
not,
to,
yeah. Yeah, you're not being your authentic self.
yeah.
You're saying yes to a product, you're saying yes to a brand deal because you want the money. You're not saying yes to it because you truly believe in the product. You're literally convincing yourself that X, Y, or Z product is good. And I see this happening so much because a big influencer has it, or because you tried it on yourself and you thought it was good, but you're not looking for patent numbers and claims. You're not looking for MSDS. You don't want to know. You just want to make the money. And that's
Yeah.
hard. That's hard for people to be like, well, I don't really want to know. I just want to make the money on it. I just want to get more clients
Yeah.
from it. Like, because that
Yeah.
sounds shitty. Because it is.
Yeah, of course we want to make money, but let's look at the facts instead of the hearsay and what this person is saying to promote it.
Yeah.
Let's look at the facts and serve your clients and
Yeah.
serve yourself
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and also, like, stop allowing these companies to do this to us. Because the more that we
Yeah.
buy, like, I think the solo esthetician we don't realize how important we are to the economy within the beauty industry.
Yeah.
We are the voice. We are the money. We are the promoters. We are the marketers. We are the advertisers. We become the first influencers for these products, right?
Yeah.
And what happens when we have sat here and promoted, and we find out they're fraud? That they've been
Yeah.
giving us, we look bad. But we don't want that to come to light because we've been selling it, right? So we just bury it deeper and deeper and deeper, and we get more people to jump on the bandwagon, right?
And I think with that whole movement that happened last year has opened a lot of eyes and
What happened last
um,
year?
Girl, you don't remember about like all of the brands that are requiring medical directors, but then they're selling straight to consumer, and there was like this big uproar. Like Aegis Ashley, she created this. I don't know what it was, but it was some type of like education thing and this movement where like estheticians were standing up to these brands that are requiring medical directors for no good fucking reason, and we're asking them why. You're selling direct to consumer. Like, excuse me? So that was like a big movement that happened. And I think some brands dropped the medical director status. Some brands are making changes to value the estheticians more. You know, not all, but you know, there are some. Cosmetics, for example, that's a brand that I work with. They used to require a medical director for their elite collection. They don't anymore. Which
Because
is
it's
great.
useless, because people that have medical directors, I mean, okay, let's be like, so like for real, like, why are these companies selling medical grade lasers to estheticians knowing damn well that they can't operate that device at all? A doctor
They
has
can't
to do it. An MD has
really.
to be operating certain levels. You can't operate levels in certain levels of
Wow.
laser devices in certain states without being a doctor. Just because you have a medical director does not mean you can actually operate that.
That's crazy that they would sell it to these people that they know are in these states and that, wow.
Like TCA
Well,
being sold in Canada.
yeah, I mean, it's all about money.
And that's the point. Where are the estheticians that are being educated and saying, like, why are you doing this as a company? Change your ways. Like, just do it the right way. We want transparency. We want honesty. We want good quality products. We don't want to try to be pulled over on anymore. Like, you can't pull the wool over our eyes anymore.
Yeah, there was this brand I wanted to work with so bad, but I don't want a medical director. I feel
Yeah.
like it's unnecessary for what I provide.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pay that monthly price. But yeah, I wanted to work with this brand, and I decided not to because of that. And they were like, well, how about this? I actually have a medical director in Phoenix that I can assign to you, and it's going to be really cheap, like $50 a month. And I'm like, I don't know who this medical director is. I've never met her in person. I don't believe I will meet her because she's 3 hours away from me. So the fact that you're offering this is kind of weird.
That's
They were
icky.
just trying. They were just trying to get me on, and I was like, I don't feel great about you right now.
I could name a couple companies that
I know. I
tried
could
to
edit
work
this
with
out.
me. I had a lady send me a whole PR thing, wanted me to bring me on. And I was like, but I don't have a medical director. And she's like, that's okay. I was like, but I don't have a. I
Oh,
thought we had
so
to
they
have
were,
one.
so they were going to do it for you and make an exception for you.
Yeah,
Wow. I mean, so fucking sketchy. I mean,
yeah. And
it
like when
just kills
now
me.
seeing things like still happening, I'm like, okay, like I
Yeah.
feel like no, these things need to be called out. Like I'm sorry, like we're not silly anymore. We're not stupid. We don't just want to bring your product on because it's trendy anymore. Like we want real
Yeah.
quality products where we know the ingredients are, where we know the companies. Like that's where we're investing our money at this point. Yeah.
So I'm really selective with what I bring on to. Like I have Glymed Plus, of course. I'm a Glymed girly. They
Cry
live and
hard.
die. Yes, they live and die for estheticians.
Yeah.
They're the only brand that goes that hard for estheticians, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? They sell direct to consumer, but they sell to consumer if you give them like your link. Like if they have that means you still get a commission.
Yeah.
Come on. That's good.
Right.
Yeah.
And even, some brands, I do carry a brand called Lyra Clinical,
Mm-hmm.
and they do sell direct to consumer. And Cosmetics does too, actually. That's another brand that I carry. But their thing is, and I'm personally okay with this, I know some people aren't, and that's fine, but they sell direct to consumer at a higher cost. So if a client of mine wants to get a product from me, it makes more sense for them to buy it from me than to
Yeah.
buy online, because then they would be paying more.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the only way that I'm like, okay, like, I get it from a business standpoint. You're trying to make your money, like, whatever.
But there is an ethical way to do it. And it's
Yeah.
been proven it can be done. So there's no excuse for these companies to not do it anymore.
Right. Yeah. Do what Glymed does. Do the online store. I've actually asked brands before, like, have you thought about doing an online store? Because that would be amazing.
Yeah, I sell so much stuff. Like I get a check every month from Glymed, and like I don't even see clients right now.
Right? You don't have to do anything. It's just your influence, like
Mm-hmm.
the education that you've put out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It was a good time talking to you, and I'll see you later.
Yeah, I'll see you soon.
If anybody wants to follow you, like, what are your tags on Instagram?
If you want to follow me, I am at the Estie Bestie on everything: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, theestiebestie.com, all that stuff.
All right, sounds good.
Cool.
All
I'll talk
right,
to you
thanks
soon.
for chatting.
Bye.
Bye.